Welcome to the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting for Wednesday, August 23rd. I would like to call the meeting to order at 6:02. And the first item on our agenda is to adjourn to executive session. And we will roll call out to executive.
A motion to adjourn to executive session.
Oh.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn
Second.
and roll call vote. Ms. Finnegan?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Ebert-Long?
Yes.
Ms. Games?
Aye.
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Gregg?
Aye.
And I am an aye. And we will adjourn to executive session, coming out at approximately 6:30 for our regular meeting. Oh, message failed. Sorry, are we on live? Are we live?
Not yet, are we?
How are you in shorts?
Flip flops and a.
No, because we're already in session.
Back to business.
I really wish I had my glasses.
Really, just put a sweater on. I don't care what it looks
Are
like.
we on?
No, I'm just gonna give them the countdown. You ready? Oh, it looks great.
Yeah, let's do, I don't know, 5?
It's the look.
Whatever.
We're gonna recall the order.
Really? Okay, so we have come back from executive session, and we will continue to move through the agenda at 6:48. And the next item on the agenda is public comment. Seeing none, we will move right along to the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from July 12th, 2023 school committee meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? All right. Next is the August 9th, 2023 school committee special meeting and workshop minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, moving right along. To reports and discussion, the first agenda item is the boys ice hockey request for a preseason overnight trip to New Hampshire.
Hi, thank you. Ooh, that's loud. I'm Karen Gomez, the athletic director here. And I do have Coach Peterson, our head boys ice hockey coach here as well. And I did send you all the proposal that he had sent to me, along with the itinerary and the budget. So I'm just going to hit a few highlights and then answer any questions if you have them. So Coach had come to me last spring asking about doing a team building overnight trip to New Hampshire and his preseason and having a couple of scrimmages, and they're actually also going to do a joint practice at Proctor Academy. And I think it's a great idea. We did it last year. The boys basketball team did, and they had a great experience out in Western Mass. So I fully supported him and brought it to you guys. So some of the objectives: enhancing team unity, skill development, leadership, responsibility, goal setting, motivation, all things that are important, and especially early on in the season when you are trying to develop that team chemistry and prepare them for their regular season. The trip will be December 1st to December 3rd. They'll be going up to the Lakes region in New Hampshire. Coach has already done all the legwork as far as the research goes, so they'll be staying at the Hampton Inn Suites in Tilton. They'll be playing scrimmage and practicing at Proctor Academy, and then he also has another scrimmage with another team up there scheduled as well. Transportation-wise, they'll actually use our 2 athletic vans for the trip. So similar to what we did with boys basketball last year, where we let them use the athletic vans, and the athletic department covered the cost of the gas. And so that was one less thing that they had to fundraise for. And then the only other change on here under the budget is that transportation will be covered by the school, and the rest of the money will be from fundraise money. So we will not be asking the kids to put in any of their own money. They have already started fundraising. They did a campaign this summer with Gold Athletics. They raised pretty much all that they need, I think, for the trip. If not, they're really close. So I have no doubt that they'll have plenty of money to cover the cost of the trip. So, just quickly on the itinerary, again, it's 2 nights. They leave on Friday, they come back on Sunday, and they do have 2 scrimmages. They have some practice time, they have some team building activities in there. He's already looked at, where they're gonna have their meals, so it's pretty organized, everything's really organized, scheduled, and the least amount of downtime for the boys is the best. So he does have them scheduled pretty good, and hopefully they'll be pretty tired at night. But again, I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to be a great trip. It was a really positive experience for the boys basketball team when they did it last year, and I think it'll be great for the boys ice hockey team. I'd love to see more of our teams doing it, but again, it is a big commitment for the coaches, and it's a lot of work to put into it, to the fundraising and the organizing and planning of the trip. And Coach did all of the planning. So he also adjusted the budget a little bit, so I know you have a copy of the budget, but he adjusted it since the transportation was covered. So he's figuring the total cost will be $6,824. And again, he's raised pretty much all of it already in their Gold Athletics campaign. Do you have any questions for me, for us?
Ms. Gaines?
First of all, I think this is a great idea because it's 2 different schools, and I think the team building is critical. And it sounded like, okay, so most of the budget, it sounds like it's been taken care of. You've already raised the money, because my question was just going to be from basketball, because I can't recall. Did they get money from our booster club for theirs? Do you remember?
No, they raised their money as well.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
okay.
The only thing that they didn't raise was they used the school vans, and the athletic budget covered their gas, and we're gonna do the same thing
Okay.
for the hockey team.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Ms. Seabright-Long?
Special here. So the whole cost it's $325 per player, but the cost has been covered through fundraising.
Correct.
So it's a no cost to the players.
Correct.
Thank you. Oh, I had no one more question. Is the team, do we already know how many players are going to be on the team now? Or will more be added? Like, what happens?
There'll probably be more added. We don't know exactly how many are gonna come out. I think with hockey is a little bit different than other sports where we have a better idea of who's played hockey. So a better idea of incoming 8th graders is really the biggest variable. What we graduated from seniors last year, and then what we have coming in for 8th graders. And I think he has an idea. Now, that could change. Sometimes you get some kids who never played or used to play and then, decide to come out again. But like I said, he has enough money within their account for boys ice hockey within the boosters to cover
Anything additional.
in anything extra. Like,
Great.
They'll be fine, and they'll be doing more fundraising once their season starts, so that will put them, if they have 5 kids come that they weren't accounting for, they'll be able to make that up.
Great, thank you.
Mr.
Yeah,
Clark?
having done several of these, they're huge for morale and chemistry, and you see some other skill levels, from off Cape, so fully support it.
Thank you.
Is it okay if we bring it back to our next meeting for a vote?
Yes, of course.
Okay, which is September 14th.
Awesome.
Okay, excellent. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along to the Monomoy Regional School District Student Handbook revisions for all schools. Did we flip coins? Okay.
Hello, Joy Jordan, Community Engagement Coordinator. I just wanted to first remind everyone that the school handbooks are on the website. They are live with all of the changes that the buildings have made. And they're interactive. You can drop down and find what you're looking for. You can also find the printable PDF if you so desire. There's one global change that we made across the board that I was elected to share with you, and that was to attendance procedures and language. It was done for two reasons, to put the buildings in alignment with each other and in alignment with the state's language and policies regarding absences, largely to take out excused and unexcused, because from the state's accountability perspective, there is no difference. So we eliminated that language in the attendance sections in the individual building handbooks and just aligned some of the procedures so that they were the same across the board. So that's it for me, and I don't know what the cage fight is.
Good evening. Nice to be back. Annual check-in with the handbook. Everyone, I assume, got the slide with our handbook edits. So there's, I think, probably our most comprehensive review of the handbook, thanks to not having COVID to deal with. So there's quite a bit on here. I know you've had the chance to review it. I thought maybe I would just highlight the more significant ones, including the search policy, which reflects the Project Citizen proposal from last spring. That's on page 40. We also have revised our illegal substances and the consequences for those. That's not substantially different, but it is more detailed than it was in terms of what's going to happen with 1, 2, 3, or 4 offenses related to vaping or any kind of chemical health violations. Other than that, everything else was just sort of a review. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them about any of the items on the list.
Ms. Seabright-Long?
I just had a question, the JOSM hour, the new cut policy, is this what we talked about, Jen's shaking her head, like last spring? When we reviewed JOSM in a way to get kids more accountable?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Essentially, we're going to treat it like a class, whereas before we were giving students 4 misses before there was announcements.
Okay, and then, I guess the senior, what do we call that?
Open campus?
Yeah, open campus, is that not needed to be in the handbook?
We did add that to JOSM hour. It's not itemized there, but we just essentially took the proposal and
Okay.
added it to JOSM.
Thank you.
Ms. Gaines?
So could you tell us a little bit about the honor code for AI? Can you tell us what does that include? And I didn't look at the link.
So we adopted wholesale the Boston University code as it relates to AI. It covers a wide spectrum of offenses and gives guidelines as to how to effectively use AI as it slowly becomes a more, probably much like the calculator way back when, more of a tool as opposed to a way of, maybe finding a loophole.
Okay. Because it says honor code, so are the students expected to sign something or?
No, they would just
Okay.
be enforced based on if they violate it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? I do have one, and I know all parents should be reading the student handbook, and I'm sure that they do diligently. But could you just briefly talk about the changes with the illegal substances? Because I know that the third violation is different than it used to be, or maybe the second?
Yeah, so-
We heard it Meet the Coaches Night, so.
So, yeah, and obviously this will be something that we'll review with students during their town hall meetings at the beginning of the year. But essentially, given the wide availability of marijuana and vaping paraphernalia, we have a lot of, or too many, repeat customers. So what we did with the handbook was an itemized list of what would happen with a first offense, specifically the use of our Project Connect program, which is an anti-vaping program, Our second offense relies on restorative justice practices, which is the use of the Cape Cod Pass program, which is instead of a suspension, you go down to the Cape Cod Pass program in Centerville, and they work through a lot of different mental health related issues with drug abuse. There's an on-site clinician. They go through a lot of support, and rather than sitting at home for 5 days for bringing in a vape or something like that, depending on the incident. The third offense would finally result in an out-of-school suspension, and then the fourth offense would be an expulsion hearing with the principal. So we felt it was better, based on experience, to have a very specific progression which is based on our values in terms of being progressive and supportive. And then finally, if need be, consider expulsion.
I'm sorry, just for public meeting.
Yep.
What about the change with the athletes?
So no real change there. Those are all MIAA governed infractions. So if you are, for example, your first chemical health violation is 25% of your games, the second is 60, and the third is you're out for the season.
Okay,
So that doesn't really change. That's state.
perfect.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Any other, Ms. Ging?
And just a quick clarification. So with MIAA, or I guess the reporting that they get would come from you, correct? All right.
Yeah, it's self-policing, so,
Okay. All right.
yep.
Trustee Berlon?
Yeah, and I don't want to follow up on that, but, the search policy, that was our Project Citizen students that came in
That's
the
correct.
spring.
Yep.
So that's something we're definitely moving forward with, and it's going to be part of the new search protocol.
That was my understanding, yeah.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
I just want to know if they updated the way we track here.
Hi, everyone. That microphone is picking me up. Abby Dudley, proud principal of Monomoy Middle School. Nice to see everyone. I think Mr. Clark, I have not seen you before, so nice to meet you. So when you go to principal school, and they always tell you in the first year, don't change a lot. So we have minimal changes for you here. So we have updated our building leadership to reflect myself, and then Mr. Dutch, who's taking over as our assistant principal, could not be here tonight because he has a 1-week-old baby at home. We updated the principal letter to reflect my thoughts. Updated our report card schedule, as we do every year, to have all the progress note and end of quarter dates in there. We updated the attendance policy, which Joy talked about. We also looked at our academic honesty policy to just expand our definitions regarding cheating at the middle school. Clarified potential outcomes to reflect a more educational response to when we are confronted with academic honesty issues. And then finally, made some minor adjustments to dress code, one that the students will love. We're updated our encouragement to prevent them from drawing on each other's bodies with Sharpies. It is a middle school. We had previously had in the handbook that students are required to leave their outdoor clothing in their lockers, but our building is old and it is cold in pockets, so things like some students like to wear scarves, and I didn't want that language to be confusing, so we changed that to allow for that. And then the biggest one is that we are going to pilot allowing the students to wear hats this year at the middle school, and then depending on how the student community does with it, we hope to continue that moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions, discussion? All right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Jen Kelly. I'm the principal at Chatham Elementary School. Most of the changes that we made to the handbook at Chatham are really just kind of housekeeping issues. We have some new staff members, so obviously we changed our staff directory and contact information within the handbook. worked with Christy and Allison over at Harwich to make some changes to our dress code. We removed wording about provocative clothing and instead replaced it with any clothing that depicts violence, alcohol, or profane language is not appropriate for school. We also added a line about headwear, that hats are strongly discouraged with the exception of religious or medical head coverings. The attendance policy changes, as Joy outlined earlier, are also made in our handbook as well. Additionally, at Chatham, I added a line to our electronic devices policy that students with cellular devices must keep them turned off and in their backpacks throughout the day, and that cell phones that are used during school hours or during after-school clubs would be confiscated and returned to the main office. We also did some updates about our after-school programs. We have two. We have Monomoy Youth Services and Chatham Parks and Rec. We just changed the age groups so that families were aware of where they should sign up if they need after-school care. And our last changes were around our after-school clubs and updating when the sessions, 4 session dates will be this year. And that is all the changes at Chatham.
Great. Any questions? Discussion? All right.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you so
Have a great
much.
night.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Allison Joy, the Assistant Principal at Harwich Elementary School. We have already been spoken about what changes we've made because we've aligned with Chatham Elementary, but we just made some few minor tweaks. We updated our staff list. We also have removed the sentence provocative clothing and began it with any clothing that depicts violence, alcohol, or profane language is not appropriate for school. And again, as Jen had stated, we also updated our hat policy to say that hats are strongly discouraged with the exception of religious or medical headwear. And our attendance policy, like we had stated, district-wide has been updated. But those were the few minor changes that we had made in our handbook this year.
Great, thank you. Any questions? All right. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along.
Meredith,
Yes?
I just have a general question, or I guess kind of a concern, kind of a question. We've got, I don't know what the high school dress code is regarding hats, but we've got both elementary schools strongly discouraging not wearing hats except for those 2 exemptions. We have, I think our high school doesn't allow hats, but now we're allowing our middle school to wear hats, and I find it really disrespectful that kids are allowed to wear hats inside a building. I mean, I was raised that was disrespectful, and I feel like we've got mixed messages across the policies. And then unfortunately, I thought it was going to be coming down the line, but it didn't.
Right.
So I would have brought it up when Ms. Dudley was here. So I don't know how we want to handle that, but I just feel like across the district, something like that should be
The same across.
the same. Because you're teaching them one thing in elementary school, something different in middle school, and then have different expectations of them in high school. And honestly, even if high school said hats were allowed, I would argue that as well. So, except for those 2 exemptions that are on there. I don't know if we want to bring that to Mrs. Dudley's attention, and if we can vote as a board that we want to change, or don't want to, we want to vote. I'm not sure the best way to handle that. That's how I feel about it. But I just...
There should be consistency.
There should be consistency, yeah.
I don't know what the high school policy,
That was my
Mr. Clark?
question.
Yeah, I just
You're
was
asking?
curious.
At the high school, it's at, sorry, I was pulling it up for you.
You were doing great up there, really.
Well, it's hard to talk here and go there. At the high school, it's at the teacher's discretion that they are allowed unless they are asked to remove them. I can pull the policy up.
No, that's fine, Joy. I don't know, like I do my due diligence and read all the handbooks, like.
Right.
I'm not sure. I assume in buildings, kids are taught to take their hats off out of respect, so, that caught me off guard. That was surprising.
Ms. James?
Well, I would even say at teacher's discretion is also a little confusing. So, yeah, I would agree with Jackie. I didn't catch that, so thank you for catching it. And I would be curious why Ms. Dudley is testing it. I think that's what she said. They're trying it out. I'm curious
Piloting it,
why
she
they're
said.
doing that. Yeah.
I don't want to speak for her, but I believe it was at the request of students.
Oh, okay. So it probably came through the student counselor.
So the line up there reads, hats and hoods are permitted to be worn in the classroom at the teacher's discretion. If a teacher deems that a hat or hood is interrupting the learning process, student will be required to remove the hat or hood. I feel like that could also be, I don't know, I don't want to use, that puts a lot of pressure on a teacher.
Yeah, it does.
Unnecessary pressure, I would say. You know, you have one student who's maybe acting out, we don't know why, but they have to remove their hat and hood, and then another, I wouldn't want to be that teacher. I would just have a flat rule myself, and that's the teacher's discretion to have a flat rule, but I feel like a handbook is a guide to help support our staff, so how much do they rely on it to support what happens in the classroom? I don't know how heavily they rely on it. I would hope they rely very heavily on it, but.
Dr. Carpenter, do you think that maybe we could have a conversation with all of the admin at the same table to have that discussion?
We can have a conversation, and I think maybe it was Joy that mentioned, I think that this has come at the high school and probably at the middle school. It's, we also, as a school district, want to empower students with student voice, and I think you've seen at the high school, students who have been advocating, it's like, for being able to wear their hats. And you can imagine you've got baseball players that are wanting to wear and represent their team. I guess it's that balancing act between listening to students and what the students are asking for, and definitely to hear you, Jackie, on where your values are too.
I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunities for students to share their voice, but there's a line at some point that we have to draw. We don't allow them to not wear shoes. So are we going to start allowing them to not wear shoes if they feel that they shouldn't have to wear shoes and they want to be heard, and then they tell us we're not hearing them because they don't want to wear shoes?
Scotty, Ms. Finnegan.
Well, I've been at this a long time, and this hat thing, I mean, let it go. I don't think it has to do any more with respect or not respect. This is, for God's sakes, you walk into a restaurant, any restaurant, and grown men are wearing hats. I mean, we're making such a big deal out of the hat thing. I mean, there's really more important things that we need to spend our time on. Only my opinion, but the hat thing has gone on and on and on forever. And the more rules you put in place, I mean, what really is the problem with the hat? We think it's disrespectful. Well, we come from a different time. I'm sorry, the hat thing is just too much time on a hat.
Ms. Gaines?
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. I hear you, Scotty, I absolutely hear you. For me, it's not about the respect piece, it's more about the consistency. I think, because reading the thing on we've given, at least in our thing up there, at the teacher's discretion, so, I don't know, we have our elementary principal here. I'd be curious as to why we rolled it out. Maybe you can give us a little.
I didn't even know you were hiding back there.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
She's like, I knew I should have left.
I'm kidding. Okay, so could you just repeat your question?
Yeah, I think we're just trying to get clarity on, so we have 2 elementary schools with no hats.
Right.
I'm not quite sure with the high school, maybe teacher's discretion, I think is what I understood. And then middle school is piloting.
Yeah.
So I think the question for me to you is, what made you decide no hats?
So we decided no hats for a couple of reasons. One, lice. That can be an issue in elementary schools, as you may know. And often we find with elementary school age students, when they have hats, it becomes a distraction. It becomes keep away at recess. It becomes the dreaded lice situation. The more things we can do to, get rid of that problem, we'll definitely use. We also work with the kids, teaching them about removing their hats as a sign of respect. That being said, I do allow students to wear hats on occasion for, as we said, medical purposes or religious purposes, or sometimes it might be a student that has an emotional or a social issue where they got a bad haircut and they are embarrassed and they don't want to come to school, I would not tell them that they have to take a hat off if that's going to get them into the classroom. So I think that it's strongly discouraged is the wording that we used for the hat situation, so that we could have that gray area for kids that might need or might want to use it. And they're younger, so it's really not as much, our kids go up to 10, so it's not part of the fashion which a middle schooler or a high schooler, they build their outfits around their hats, so. Scott?
So Jen, do you think it's really a developmental question?
It might be, I think so. I mean, I think my kids are they're young, we're K through 4, so we're little, and it's more just their winter hats and things of that nature that they're trying to wear inside the building.
Ms. Gray?
Same spot on, Scotty. I think it's as they're growing, it sounds to me like the middle school is giving them an opportunity to show them mature enough to wear it, but not use it as a distraction, not throw it across the room, not do the things you would do in elementary school. So I think I get what she's doing. And I agree with you. I think that if it's not distracting, let the kid wear a hat. And I get it. I grew up with the same thing. Hat in a building is disrespectful. It's just not how people are raised right now. So pick your battles, kind of.
Dr. Carpenter?
If I recall correctly, I believe when Monomoy first came together, we didn't have hats. At least I don't think we had hats at Harwich High School. And I remember Bill Burkhead having a conversation early on just, sort of like, what battles do you really want to engage teenagers with? And, and the hat, I think the hat thing became, one of these, I think for Bill, some of it too was, I'm enforcing a rule, doesn't feel that great, and I think that's where I think there started to be a rethinking of hats at least at the high school level.
Ms. Eberl-Long?
This is a really upsetting conversation for me, only because I'm frustrated. I think that we are coming up with 110 excuses why we shouldn't have to tell a student what they have to do and what they don't have to do. I think we have students for 8 hours a day, and sometimes we're their structure. I think that kids need manners and kids need respect, and an educational institution like a public school system is exactly where they get it. I don't necessarily know that they get it at home. I think when I was growing up, I got it at home, but it was reinforced in school. It's not a silly fight to pick. I'm not fighting. When you sing the national anthem at a baseball game, you take your hat off. When you stand up and you say the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag, because we all live here with freedom, you take your hat off. It's a simple request. It's not someone saying, well, yeah, you had a bad haircut, let's let Billy wear, yeah, fine. Okay, so it's a religious thing, you want to wear a scarf in your head, yeah, okay. But it's okay to say those are reasons to do it, but for those specific reasons, not to create a reason why you think you should be able to wear a hat in a school. And we can come up with excuses on why we want to not have them do it. Oh, it's for lice, oh, it's for this, oh, it's for that. Great, all great reasons. But for me, at the core of it, and I'm young, you don't do that. It's respect. And our kids are lacking manners and they're lacking respect. And that's part of the problem. So we're part of the problem because we're too afraid to reinforce these very, very simple rules. As Betty's saying, it's a very simple request. It shouldn't be that difficult. If somebody wants to stomp their feet or protest coming to school because they can't wear a hat, God help our future. God help us all. Because I'm not sure who's going to work the job 8 hours a day if they can't wear their hat. I mean, this is ridiculous. We have teachers that wear inappropriate shirts politically at schools, and we're not saying a thing about it. We've got kids that are wearing inappropriate, politically driven things at school, and we're not saying anything about it. But we care about the girl who wants to wear the crop top or the shorts that are too short or a 1-inch heel in elementary school. We're all over the place. We might as well wear uniforms, because if you want to talk about discriminating people, these handbooks are all over the place. And to pick on a silly hat, that's not what it is. It's the larger global issue we are having as a district. We're getting too loose. We're trying to please too many people. They're students, they're here to learn. You walk in the door, you take your coat off, you take your hat off, you put it away, you learn. You respect your teacher. You don't question your teacher. That's what happens. It boggles my mind where we're getting now in society. And it boggles my mind that I'm sitting at a table where we're having this conversation. Yes, as simple as a hat can create a much larger global issue, which we all know we have.
Mr. Russell?
Hats off to you, Jackie.
Thank you. That's
I come from senior years, and in my experience, that was an issue, and we kept going at it and at it, and finally, with 4 grades and 1,000, 1,100 kids, they took their hats off. And it's a minor thing. On the other hand, when you speak to a boy or a girl with a hat on, you say, in your own mind, I think you're staying for the day. You come to school, you're here for the day. Take the hat off. And I don't need to repeat your logic. Unfortunately, I feel kind of like the springtime, you'd go get a sandwich somewhere. Somehow we got behind the issue. Remember last spring? And I wasn't paying attention, especially about the hat issue. And when I heard that 2 elementary schools say yes or no or whatever, and then the middle school says yes, now you can wear them, even that in itself is odd. It's either one thing or the other. So I don't know whether it's too late or we ask the superintendent to bring together the principals, and I guess we make a big deal out of the dress code thing, if you want to. So unfortunately, the kids were excited, obviously, about it. And one more thing goes down for normalcy. So maybe we think on it.
I think maybe it's worth a conversation with them, just to kind of, maybe they don't realize that it's so different in the other schools. Maybe they do, but maybe just having that conversation would help to clarify. Thanks, Jen, for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I have a clarifying, not for you, thank you so much. I just have a clarifying question. What Joy had just pulled up on the screen, is that our district? What we just looked at about at the teacher's discretion, was that the district?
That was high school.
That was high school.
Oh, that's high school,
Yep.
okay, I apologize, okay.
Yep.
All right, that's fine.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. I just thought for some reason that was our district policy, and I was going to ask, why are we going against it? But so that clarified it, thank you.
And you'll talk to them?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the new student activity account for the class of 2028. 2028. Mr. McMillan?
Just checked it off, we weren't even doing it yet.
All right, good evening, school committee. Michael McMillan, the school business manager. First thing is the approval of a student activity account for the class of 2028. So, we set up individual bank accounts individual accounts for student funds, for student activity funds. Those are strictly speaking the students' money. We just help look after the funds for them. We create different activities so we can sort of organize those funds. The class will do various fundraising activities over the next few years in order to collect as much money as they can, and they'll spend it on things like senior class trip, prom, and other events, particularly in their senior year. And we get your approval before we set one up.
Perfect. Any questions, discussion? Do I have a motion? Ms. Rogers?
Sure. I'd like to move to approve the creation of a student activity account for the class of 2028.
Second?
I would second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right,
Awesome.
we're good.
Thank you very much.
And
I think
the
this
next.
is me too.
Yep, this is you too. Approval of a donation from the MRHS Animal Welfare Club to the Sampson Fund.
So this is also student activity related. So this is the student activity funds. These do belong to the students, but as they're making a donation, we come to get school committee approval before we make the donation.
Perfect. Any questions, discussion? Do I have a motion?
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the donation from the MRHS Animal Welfare Club in the amount of $200 to the Sampson Fund.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right,
All right.
you're good for a few minutes.
Yep, thank you very much. I'll be back.
Okay. So next is the first reading of our 2023-2024 MRSC goals.
Sorry, we're freezing.
I know.
It's so cold.
It's a little chilly.
It's blowing on us.
Keeping us awake.
We're like, "Ugh."
So we all did have a chance to peruse this. For the public meeting, I think I will read just the goals, maybe not the action stuff, or everything. Ms. Gaines?
Do you, I have a proposed edit. Would you like that now, or would you like, how do you want to entertain that? It applies to goal 1.
Let's start with that then.
So, in reading this, one of the things that struck me is, so we're focused on the teachers and the staff. Perfect. I also wanted
Can I
to-
interrupt you for just one
Sure, go
second so
ahead.
that we can just say what the goal is?
Oh, read
So
the goal, yeah.
our
I'm
goal
sorry.
number 1.
Yeah, goal number 1, the MRSC, which is the school committee, will advocate for affordable and attainable housing to recruit and sustain high-quality teachers and staff. What I'd like to propose, if everyone agrees, or we can have a discussion, is I don't want to lose that student enrollment can also be affected with this. So let me just read my proposed statement and we can discuss it. And let's see here. Oh, actually, did this change since I reviewed? I think it might have. Maybe this changed. So what I wrote was, if we could expand goal number 1, no, this is the second sentence. We will also follow any housing challenges that might affect our student enrollment, causing families to leave the area. So, and then I also added an action step, if we agree to add that. My action step number 4 would be, we will seek representation and inclusion in community conversations that pertain to housing challenges that cause our families to leave the district. Just because I felt like, I know that we went through this whole thing 2 or 3 years ago with Chatham Elementary School, and I don't want to lose that housing could also, not just our staff and teachers, it might push our families out.
It does.
Yes, it does. So I would like to propose adding a second sentence if the committee would entertain that, or we can discuss it.
Ms. Seabright-Long?
I also wanted to add, I don't know, should we move, should we stay, I want to stay within 1. I also think for each goal, we should read it and read our action steps and then talk about them. I think that you were looking for what should you do, I think that's what we should do. So for number 1, not Tina's suggestion, but number 3, if I hadn't been in the workshop, I might not know what you mean by this. So I'm wondering, this is what we were talking about, is maybe having an intern work within the Housing Assistance Corp, right?
Well,
or is this
yes
having
and no.
Sherry reach out to the?
So it would be having having Mrs. Armstrong reach out to the Housing Assistance Corp, because it's not in our purview as school committee to say have an intern there or
Okay.
suggest that, but we can suggest that within her program, she could reach out to that organization as a potential that could have an internship.
Should it be to support the high school career education internship facilitator? Is that what she is? Is she a facilitator or a coordinator?
Coordinator.
Should it be to support the internship coordinator to initiate
Instead of
conversation
program?
Instead of program?
Yeah.
Because that seems a little bit more direct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
Okay. How do we feel about Tina's suggestion? Ms. Rogers?
I think it's important to include the families and the students just because enrollment is such an issue. So I think that it would work well as far as the action step. Would we then have to create a subcommittee or a liaison or?
Well, maybe. I mean, yeah, or we could just decide amongst ourselves, because I think I have this thought in my head that, like, the housing committee for Harwich, as an example, I might propose, or we might propose, that we have a representative from the school committee. Just because when we're having these housing conversations, our needs of our families are important, I think, to the conversation. So whether it might be a liaison, maybe, I mean, we can decide that, but I just feel like we need a voice at the table, because I'm not hearing it. I mean, I know when I ran for school committee this last time, I brought it up in my little interview with Harwich, but I don't hear it in these conversations, and it might help to have a voice at the table.
Lucy Verlong?
Tina, I'm wondering, unless I'm missing something, which I could be, can we put it with number 1?
Sure.
Because in honor of having a lot of subcommittees last year and having to trim them down, we don't want to over task force and over subcommittee. So I'm wondering if we have a cross-district task force to discuss and develop a statement of support for attainable housing.
Yes.
Can we add on to that? That maybe that's part of that task force?
Yes, and I would agree with that. If we can change, and I'll just read this again, if we can add that second line to goal number 1, I think the way action step 1 reads is fine, because it covers both, in my opinion. Yeah, thank you for saying that.
So-
do you want me to read my thing again?
Yes, please, because I only got halfway.
Yeah, let me get it back up. Okay.
Please, that's a question.
So you're adding on to goal 1, and your proposed number 4, you're going to include in action step 1.
Yes, and go with Jackie, well, let me just read my second, if I can. All right, so right now it says, everybody can read the first sentence. I'm proposing to add a second sentence to goal 1 that says, we will also follow any housing challenges that might affect our student enrollment, causing families to leave the area. And I can read it again if you want.
Housing challenges.
We will also follow any housing challenges that might affect our student enrollment, causing families to leave the area. Is my proposal.
And then, Tina, you're going to add to action step 1?
Yep, and but I think now that you say this, action step 1 might cover both, because action step 1 says create a cross-district task force to discuss and develop a statement of support for attainable housing. To me, that could apply to both. Don't you think?
I just don't want what you want to get lost, like for us to forget about it.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because I think if we're doing the cross-district task force, I mean, I guess I would ask, how does everybody feel? I mean, should we, because my proposal for action step 4 was, we will seek representation and inclusion in community conversations that pertain to housing challenges that cause our families to leave the district. So whether that we need to add it, or whether number 1 will cover it.
Lucy Verlong?
I think if you have a task force that is developing a statement of support for attainable housing, they've got to go out to those different places to get the information.
Part of it.
Yeah. So
I think it covers it.
They're doing the work to create the statement, and they're going to find out all that information that you're going to need maybe for action step 2 and 3 as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with leaving it to 3 as long as we can add that second line. I just don't want that to get lost in this conversation. Yeah.
Is everyone okay with adding that second line? Okay, perfect.
Do you want me to repeat it, Leah, or did you?
I'm just going to read it back to you. We will also follow any housing challenges that might affect student enrollment, causing families to leave the area.
Yes.
And scratching out action step 4.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Plus the coordinator as opposed to the program.
Correct. Okay, so just to recap, our first goal is that the school committee will advocate for affordable and attainable housing to recruit and sustain high-quality teachers and staff. We will also follow any housing challenges that will affect student enrollment, causing families to leave the area. Our action steps will be to create a cross-district task force to discuss and develop a statement of support for attainable housing, to build opportunities for the school committee and town boards to discuss recruitment and sustain high-quality employees, and to support the MRHS Career Education Internship Coordinator to initiate a conversation with the Housing Assistance Corporation. Good? All right, moving on. Goal number 2 is the school committee will continue to support equity and diversity work within our district. And our action step is to have our DIBEC committee present in the fall of '23 and in the spring of '24 on the committee's work on supporting equity within our district, which is just a carryover from a goal we had last year where the equity task force changed into DIBEC. And so we're just continuing that conversation. Any questions about that goal? Changes? Okay. Goal number 3, the school committee will work with the MREA to assemble a contract that is regionally competitive and acknowledges the current financial challenges. Our action steps will be to hold a joint meeting with town leaders to discuss the fiscal status of our communities, to have the negotiating subcommittee meet with the administrative team to discuss aspects of the contract that may need to be updated, and to work with the MREA to create a negotiation meeting schedule. Changes, discussion? Ms. Seibert Long?
I just have one question. The joint meeting with town leaders to discuss the fiscal status of our communities, that was when we were talking about where they are with their staff and admin and where we are. Is that what you mean by communities? Because
that was the conversation we had about, because we're going into negotiations, meeting with the town administrators in both towns to kind of discuss where everybody's at as far as the financial status of the towns.
Because I'm wondering if it's not communities, because communities to me means the financial status of like how many are living in town and all that, but I thought what we were talking about was the town's staff, like the DPW and the...
That's what we're talking about.
Right, so fiscal status of the community doesn't...
So fiscal status of our town departments?
You're getting there. Yeah, that's what I mean though. It's not the community
you're
we're
right.
looking at, the
That's
fiscal
what
status
we're talking about. Fiscal status of our municipal employees?
Sounds kind of crass, but yeah, you're getting there. Keep going. Hold a joint meeting with town leaders to discuss the fiscal status regarding negotiations or regarding
negotiations of our municipal.
Because we are looking at everybody.
What?
So we are looking at everybody in those conversations.
Right.
So,
but it's not community. They're not looking at me.
No, I'm agreeing with that.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying when we're talking about negotiations, we want to say municipal
employees.
negotiations or something like that.
I'll advocate for the way it's worded is sufficiently broad in that I agree there's the municipal workers, including teachers, and it's also the fiscal wherewithal of both towns, and those are the two, like I think we need to talk about the folks that work for us, town side, school side, but it's also fiscally what, where are the towns in terms of, their ability to go meet the needs that we know are out there.
I just feel like it's one of those action steps that we know what it means, but when you read it, it interprets different. So I mean, I know what it means, but the action step, in my opinion, isn't getting us there. But if you guys, I mean, majority here, if you guys think it's fine or not, that's just my 2 cents.
And we will bring that back, when Betty and I, and potentially Scott, hopefully Scott, meet with the town administrators, we'll bring that information back, and maybe that will clarify what it means.
Well, I don't need clarification of what it means. I'm just saying if the general public's reading the action step, that's my impression of it.
Yeah.
So, it's fine. I mean, that's just my, like I said, 50 cents, 75 cents.
Okay. What do you think? Leave it?
I think leave it. I think it's a good
Keep it
point.
broad?
The towns are, yeah, just.
Okay. All right, moving on to goal number 4. The school committee will support improvements in the effectiveness of teaching and learning within the district. Our action steps are to have the 2 new curriculum directors, the director of curriculum instruction and assessment, and the principals provide a mid-year, January, and end-of-year in June report to the school committee to discuss the progress of the new pre-K to 12 evaluation structure in supporting supervision of learning, teaching, and curriculum. To continue to support curriculum roles in the MRSD budget, and the MRSD policy subcommittee with both the director of curriculum instruction and assessment and director of student services will review and update as necessary the policies within the school committee policy manual section I, instruction. Question?
Yeah, so number 2, continue to support curriculum roles. I'm assuming we're talking positions, the 3, so roles meaning what?
The 3 positions.
Okay.
So the director and then the,
Would positions be a better word, or is everybody clear on what roles? Because I was a little.
positions might be more.
I like positions. More descriptive, I guess.
Okay. Are we feeling okay about the rest of it? Okay. And then our final goal is that the school committee will develop a new strategic plan with administration. Our action steps are the school committee strategic plan subcommittee will work with the consultants to develop a timeline and process for the development of the strategic plan. The school committee members will participate as a focus group in this process. The school committee will get monthly updates on the progress of the development of the strategic plan, and the school committee will support the administration in operationalizing the strategic plan. Questions, discussion? Ms. Ratlog?
I know, I'm on roll tonight.
You are.
Well, we haven't decided if we're doing consultants or not for the strategic plan, am I correct? Oh. Well, there's no report, but I wouldn't know that.
Right.
So, that's presumable.
That's right, we haven't heard the report yet.
But I believe in our workshop, we did talk about potentially reaching out to them just to see what that possibility was.
Yeah, we set it to the strategic plan subcommittee, or.
So maybe it should be
We
the
charged it
subcommittee
to them.
will contact consultants?
I mean, if a decision's been made, and we don't have to vote on it, then you can put whatever you want in here.
Yeah.
So a report will be coming under the subcommittee reports, number I.
But it is what we discussed in the workshop.
We discussed talking about it, yeah.
Yeah, we weren't clear at that point if we were having consultants or we weren't, so, yeah.
I believe it's a vote, but it might not be.
It will be a vote after the subcommittee report. But that one wasn't edited. That's what we had from our workshop. Mr. Russell?
On goal 4, action step 2. Continue to support curriculum roles in the Monomoy Regional School Department budget. To make this a little less, why wouldn't, I read that and I say, it's brand new. And now we're saying we'll continue to, without naming what particular actions were, that we will support from this group. Continue to support curriculum roles in the Monomoy Regional budget.
Although we changed it to.
We just changed it to positions.
Are you suggesting to take it out because it's
Yeah,
something we would do anyway?
That's, right now, that's my moment of looking at it, saying, didn't we just launch this? And why would we have an action step that enunciates it? Because some of us are slipping.
Maybe, we thought you were there for a hot minute.
I've slipped.
Well, I'm wondering, Terry, if the intention of it is to have the school committee behind what we feel is a very important addition to the staff and for the curriculum. I'm wondering if that's what it is. It's reinforcing that we support it, and I don't know. But yeah, you're right, it could be double dipping, I don't know.
It's okay.
That's your 50 cents.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
And yeah, and considering what we went through the last budget cycle, I mean, it might, it might put an endorsement, I guess, for all of us that we have agreed. That's how I read it. That we're not going to waffle.
Could say
Okay.
continue to endorse. I like that word, endorse, use it every day. Continue to endorse the curriculum positions and endorse and support. I don't know. It's fine. I just didn't like roles, like positions.
Just keep support positions. Is fitting in?
Well, the more I keep reading it, it's kind of an odd action.
I agree.
I mean,
So maybe just that first action step, having the directors and the director of curriculum instruction and assessment and the principals provide the reports twice a year is our support. And then to also review the policies under the instruction section of our policy manual covers it, and we can just X out number 2.
So we're going to take it
it's
out.
sort of open-ended. Why aren't we doing that with every?
Well, yeah, why isn't
Right.
every position listed?
Right. Okay,
So we're going to take it out, number 2?
yes. So I believe this probably has to come back for a first read again at our next meeting.
Were we finished, I'm sorry,
We
were we
weren't done with
finished with
5.
goal number 5?
Oh,
Yes.
Did we have something somebody was clarifying?
We were talking about consultants.
Oh, yeah, the consultants.
Progress.
we could say the subcommittee will consult with consultants. Because
It's got to come back for another read anyway.
it has to come back for another read anyway.
So I have a question.
Ms. Gaines?
So we're going to have a report shortly, but I don't see a vote on the agenda. So am I to assume, the vote is here? Where did I miss something?
It's number 3 in
Right.
the action items.
Okay. Oh, I see. Recommendation. Okay, then we are voting. Okay, that makes sense.
So I think that what happened was we wrote this in the assumption, or actually maybe even knew that the conversation was going to happen with that subcommittee in between our workshop and now, and so that's why they're bringing more information for us
Okay.
to then discuss and decide if their recommendation is what our committee would like to go with.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So would it make sense, since I'm just reading the way it's listed, strategic planning facilitator recommendation, so would it make sense to say, school committee, strategic plan subcommittee will work with the facilitator to develop the timeline? Does that make sense? Rather than consultants, that way we're not getting into sticky business on consultants? So with the facilitator, and the facilitator's open-ended because it could be anybody, depending on how we vote.
Could be a facilitatee.
Yeah, could be Scott facilitating.
Okay. Are we feeling better about that, facilitator?
Sounds good to me.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I'm just not okay with the out of order, but there's nothing I can do about it now, so we're good. Carry on.
All right.
We'll
Okay,
find out what happens.
back for a first read next meeting.
We'll be.
All right.
Great job, you guys, both with the goals, by the way.
Yes.
I know how many notes went into that, so.
So the next on the agenda is the first reading for the policy file BBBA/BBBB, school committee member qualifications and oath of office. Betty?
Sure. So I'm just gonna just highlight the red. Those are the 2 changes. We added there to his, her, there. And we added 3A, if a member is part of another municipal organization where this is required, the member only needs to take the training once and provide the certification to the other municipal organization they are a member of, and that is regarding the ethics training. Because the question came up, if you're on multiple committees, do you have to take the ethics training more than once for each committee, or will one do?
Questions, discussion? Ms. Gaines?
So just one clarity, because I just recently did this. So when you go on to the state website and you're taking it, there's a drop down where you have to pick. So if I was doing it for Monomoy, I'd click on Monomoy. So the certificate, or however it comes out, is going to say Monomoy. So is that certificate sufficient? Let's just say I take it for over here at this committee, and I pick that committee. So are we saying that I can come over with my certificate from this committee, and that's sufficient here? That's
Yes.
what we're saying? Okay. Because I did notice that we actually, when we go to take the training, it's no longer like you have to link it to something. So,
Right.
okay.
Any other questions? Discussion? Okay. Moving right along. Fiscal year 23 quarter 4 report and budget transfers. Ms. Woodville?
Just gonna. Good evening, school committee. Michael Millen, business manager. I provided a report in your packs, or you received in the last day or two, with an update on how we ended the fiscal year. So June 30th was the end of the fiscal year, and that was the end of our FY23 budget. So I've just a few slides here that pulled out some of the the charts in there just to give you an idea of how it finished. So at the end of the year, we had, once everything all was said and done, we had 1.3% of our budget remaining. So that was 1.3% which had not been spent or encumbered, which means it was set aside for expenses from FY23. So that totaled about $560,000. That's less than we had last year. It was less than half of what we had last year. And it's a little hard to see on this chart here, but there's a light blue box outside that dark blue box, and that's the budget. And the dark blue bar inside each one of those is expenditure. So you can see, and maybe in the packs in front of you, you can see that we're a lot closer to our budget with our expenditure this year. But we still had, I think 1.3%, and as I mentioned earlier, some of those funds were used to prepay costs for next year. So we had a number of pressures that we hadn't expected, so HVAC costs and substitute costs, but we're still within a margin of comfort. We had plenty of money at the end of the year, but not too much. So I think, although there was a number of things we were watching and keeping an eye on, we were comfortable at the end of the year. If anybody has any questions as I go, feel free to ask. And then this is another chart that's in your handout, and this just shows our month-to-month expenditure. So the dark blue line is our actual expenditure, and the orange lines are a forecast based on the last 5 years of expenditure. So it just helps me keep an eye on if we're, month to month, if we're looking out of kilter or if something's looking different than we would expect. So you can see we were close. This is a small chart for $50 million. So although we're close to that line, any variation can have a big impact. But we were relatively within where we would expect to be given the last 5 years. And it's just not last. So in last month, we pay a lot of the summer. So we pay the last 5 checks for teachers. So a lot of them get their checks over the summer, or they get them all at once on the last day. So that means that's why June's always a bigger expense than previous months. And that kind of just put us up at that upper confidence bound. And then so the state actually gives us categories of accounts, and we kind of categorize all our expenditure into these major accounts. And so I've listed the major accounts in this chart down the left, And again, the dark blue line is how much we spent, and the light blue line is the budget for that major account. So that just helps to give you a bit more of a sense of where the money was going and where we saw a surpluses or deficits. So I'll just highlight a couple of those. One of them is, so in teachers, so we had a bit of a surplus in teachers, and that's because, really, it's because of retirements or resignations early in the year, so either just before even the school year started, so last summer. So when we create the budget, it's my excuse, but we create the budget in sort of October, November time, and we do update it as we go, but often we do it based on the staff we have at the time. And so if we have a member of staff who's near the top of the salary scale and they have not indicated that they're planning to retire, we've budgeted their salary in FY24, and then if they resign in May, once the budget's done, and are replaced with somebody lower down the salary schedule, then that creates a surplus. And we just had a lot of churn. I think coming out of COVID, we're still coming out of COVID out of FY22 and into FY23, we saw a lot of turnover in staff, and that netted us a surplus in our budget. And actually, when we were creating the FY24, this year's budget, 24 budget, we saw that as well, because we just had, our salary budget was a little less than we would have expected it to be, because we had kind of staff lower down the salary schedule. So we kind of benefited from that in FY23, and it helped reduce our budget in FY24. And that's why we were able to do so many of the priorities we did this year. So pupil services, so that is over budget, and that's because it was actually under budget at the end of the year, but because we had a little bit of a surplus, we used that to pay for some FY24 transportation costs with the collaborative. So we just prepaid in advance for some of those transportation costs. So what I'm going to ask in the next agenda item, or in the agenda, is to transfer some of these surpluses into that major account to offset that deficit. So at the end of the year, will be whole in all the major accounts. Programs with other districts, so that includes school choice and a charter tuition, and also special education out of district tuition. And in all of those areas we had surpluses. So our school choice, that's the number of students leaving us to go to other districts, that was down, which is a good thing. Also the number of students at the charter schools, particularly the Cape Cod Lighthouse Charter, that was down. And so we had less cost there because we had to pay for those students. And also the number of students receiving tuition out of district. So that's some of our students who are not able to educate in the district. We pay private schools and collaboratives to pay when they have specific special education needs. So those students will be day students or sometimes residential. And we obviously estimate that based on the students we know at the time. But it's a small number of students and they have large costs, so small fluctuations can actually lead to big budget impacts. And often, it's the flip where we unexpectedly have an increase in costs, but this year we had a reduction in costs where placements moved and were cheaper. And our out-district tuition came in, I think, like $320,000 below budget. So that was another surplus in that area. Other teaching services, that includes substitutes, and we saw an increase in our substitute expenditure, particularly so we split up substitute expenditure. This is just for teachers actually. We split it up between long-term and short-term substitutes, and we actually saw a bigger increase in long-term substitutes. So staff going out for a long period of time and being replaced for substitutes for several months, and that saw a big increase there, and that drove up, that led to a deficit in that account. And those are the main things I wanted to highlight. A slight deficit in benefits, a slight surplus, in benefits and charges again. So that's the biggest charge in there is a health insurance, and so that's linked to salaries. So we saw surplus in salaries, and so we'll have related to that a surplus in benefits as well. Any questions about any of that? I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, but anything that jumps out. We did have so we have changed the process a little bit, and we had a meeting of the finance subcommittee on Monday to talk about this. So just so you're aware that we've had some analysis and review of the information as well. So I've also included some information on our revenue. Revenue tends not to fluctuate so much because we do have a sense of where the big grants are going to be, and the town assessments are settled in town meetings, and we know what that's going to be, and that doesn't really change. There are a few areas where we saw kind of fluctuations. One is in charter reimbursements. So up here it looks like we are receiving a lot more for charter reimbursement. Actually, the state made a mistake with our figures in FY22 where they charged us too much tuition, and so they gave it back to us in FY23 in that number. So that actually includes them returning some of those funds to us. So if we hadn't got that, we would have been way below budget on charter reimbursement. That's because charter reimbursement is linked to how many students are going out. And so the number of students going out went down, which is great because that's lower tuition for us, but it means that our reimbursement is also down. But it's generally a good news story when that number goes down, because that's fewer students going to charter schools and more students staying in the district. One other one just to highlight is our interest. I've been talking about this throughout the year, but we have, with higher interest rates available, we've been maximising returns on our bank accounts, and so we've seen more money flowing into the general fund from our investments in treasury bonds. And so whenever, if we have overall an increase in revenue greater than we expected, that money just all flows to the general fund, to the excess and deficiency fund. As with the surplus in the budget, that all just flows to excess and deficiency. So excess and deficiency, that's an account that allows regional districts to carry deficit surpluses from year to year. And I think that's all my slides. So the excess and deficiency, that account is our sort of surplus year to year, and it was about $2.5 million last year, I think. My estimate, and there's a long way to go because it has to be audited by our auditors and by the state, I think it's going to be down, maybe down to about $2.2 million. And that still gives us money that we can use to offset future budgets. And we used like $800,000 for FY23 and 24, and we would have a similar amount of money available for FY25. So when it comes to the budget process, we'll be talking about that again. So, any questions about any of all that?
Ms. Games?
I have some questions about student activity accounts.
Excellent.
Is that right?
Yes.
So I'm looking at, all right, so after prom, so there's a balance there. Does that get carried over? Is it just a prom account that everybody passes along every year?
So
it's
yes,
not linked to a particular class?
So they try and maintain a balance to pass forward to the next year.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. And then on the class, like class of 2023, who's already graduated, there's a balance of $11,177. What happens to that if
So
they've
there
all
are
gone?
I think they have some costs outstanding which have still been paid, and then the class officers vote on how they want to spend the last funds. So they have a number of options. They can do pretty much whatever they like with it because it's their money. But there's kind of comes down to three things. They can spend it on something, but they have to kind of spend it now because we tell them to take them and we tell them to use it up. They can spend it now. They can just take the money and put it in a bank account which they use for like reunions or other get-togethers and down the line. And sometimes they also use it to buy a gift for the school or the district and their junior, the year following them. So they have some options and we work with them to get that processed. It can take some time. So for example, if they were going to withdraw the money, they got to go and open a bank account, and that can just, the seniors are like in the wind. So we're trying to get it, sometimes it will be like they'll come back at Thanksgiving and we'll be like, okay, now you got to go open your account and get the money in there. So it's kind of a bit of a process and there's always a bit of a lag, but like it's up to us to make sure that lag doesn't extend for years. So sometimes we're sitting there, we've got money from class of 2012 and we're trying to get that money, make sure it's gone.
Okay, I appreciate that, because class of 2023, so they don't make that decision before they graduate. You're chasing them for the next year. So they do make the decision, they do make some of the decision. I can't remember exactly what class of 23 decided, but sometimes they don't know exactly how much they're going to have left at the end of the year. Okay. So sometimes they might have decided we're going to spend a portion of it on this thing and they have more left than they thought they would. So, but they have made the decision. It's just they can't withdraw the money until the end of the year and all the bills are paid. And then so there's a kind of, we can't do it before the end of the year while they're still here. So you have to wait until the end of the year. Then they can withdraw the money, but by that point they're not here anymore. So there's a bit of a lag. Wow, so you just have to make sure you elect really responsible people that are going to stay with you
Yeah.
for a couple of years.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which we always do.
And now, one other question on guidance exam fees. So there's a balance there. So what, I'm assuming that those are when students take exams, so
Yep.
they're paying a fee, so
Yeah,
you've got a
like-
balance. What happens to the balance? I mean, is that applied toward people who, like scholarships for
Yeah,
exams?
so I would need to check why. I mean, there shouldn't really be a balance because, I mean, yes, no, I know there is. I'm saying, but with exam fees, normally it should just be in and out. So we should know that how many people are going to set fee. We should get the money from them and we should pay it. So, but that account has been used. It was also used for guidance, some related costs related to the guidance department in the past. So that might be a historic balance. So I can look into that and find out and let you know.
Okay, yeah, I'd be
yeah,
curious,
I
because if
mean-
you're carrying a balance there, I'd like, should be used for something.
Yeah,
but
so that
okay.
might be the sort of thing, and we can look into it, but that, under our policy, that might be the sort of thing we could come to school committee and have you vote to move it into the Lighthouse Fund. And from there, it would be used to pay for students' exam fees.
And those are my questions. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you.
Much straight up.
So part of that is the budget transfers, which is the next document in our packet. That
I've got it all up here. So what this is when we, so under the school committee policy, we have to make sure that those major accounts do not end the year with a surplus or a deficit. So, where there is a surplus or a deficit, I'm asking you as a school committee to approve a transfer of funds from one major account to the other major account in order to resolve the deficits. So what I've done is in your handout, we've arranged the request by the reason for the request, and then the major account that it's from or to, and just for your information, the actual individual account code that it's coming out of. And then a plus means we're putting money into that account, and a minus means we're taking money out of that account. And so just the reasons for those are, one was to allow us to pay transportation costs to the collaborative, one was to cover a deficit due to substitute expenditure, one was we installed a new projection screen at the high school, and the final one was we just had a deficit in some of our instructional, the instructional leadership costs that were related to increased translation costs and some other training we did. So those are the requests we wanted to have your approval for.
do I have a motion?
I'll do it, it's fine. I feel like we should have had the finance subcommittee update before the presentation. No point
That's
in me
good,
talking now.
because if the finance subcommittee says this is terrible.
I know, it's terrible, so therefore I'm
Yes,
going
we
to
should
make a
have had the
motion.
update, yeah.
I move to approve the FY23 Quarter 4 budget transfers as listed in the memorandum provided to the school committee. Do you need them by account numbers?
No. I mean, it's up to you. It's up to you. I think this is in the documents, so that
Do
motion's
you
enough.
want them by account number?
Not if you don't think we need them that way. Okay, the grid will be in the minutes. A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right.
I am going to be looking into our microphone budget, which seems to have gone slightly out of control.
Okay,
I think
perfect.
that's in-
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to subcommittee representatives and liaison reports, we have the Strategic Planning Subcommittee report and facilitator recommendation.
Yes, we met and we kind of weighed the pros and cons of costs and to go with a fully, facilitator fully run it or just the Monomoy team. We came to the agreement that we would have kind of somewhere in the middle, have facilitators run the focus groups and then have the Monomoy team kind of take that data and come up with a strategic plan. And our recommendation is to move forward with TLA. We did work with a graduate as our facilitator. We recently, yesterday, got a proposal for phase one. So that is our recommendation, that Dr. Carpenter work with them and facilitate our strategic plan.
Anything more? Scotty, do you have anything to add?
No.
Scott, do you have anything to add?
Sure. TLA is the group that we worked with for the Porch for the Graduate. I think we worked quite well with them. We'd have the same facilitators, Gary Maestas and Pam Gould, who know our district. And, in the proposal that they sent us, if we were to do that sort of hybrid, we're looking at, sort of a low end of $9,000. And if we used TLA to do everything from the facilitation to showing up and guiding us during the writing process of it, which happens over several meetings, and do the graphic design, the quote that we had, and which was the same for the price for Porch for the Graduate was $18,750. I think what I'd like to see is our subcommittee work with them on just sort of fleshing out what that process is going to look like. They gave us some, we'll call it a la carte. We could have another meeting here, another meeting here for that, for that much. And I think we just need to work with them on fleshing out how, what that whole process is going to look like for us here as a school district. But I would not see us, we've got a wonderful graphic designer when it comes to putting the strategic plan together, and Joy on the other side. So I don't think we need all of their services, but we may decide that we want to have them involved in some of those writing sessions. But again, if you've ever been writing by committee, I think Dr. Millen and I can help guide that process along, and we might not need to have facilitators showing up for that piece of it.
Any questions?
Yeah, just for clarification. So are we, I guess we're voting on this. So we're voting then based on 18,750, but what you're saying is you might not use it all. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. So the white, what's in white is that proposal that would be the hybrid. So, we'd say the least expensive it's going to be is $9,000. But I think if we work with them, I wouldn't want to box us into saying, okay, because even when we did the Portrait of the Graduate, we decided that there would, it might make sense to have another focus group with this group. We don't want to sort of box ourselves in and not be able to add another meeting.
So,
I don't care. So we have two proposals, which, this is their proposal in yellow. They're saying it's going to be $18,750.
That was from a year and a half ago.
Okay, so the white one's in their new proposal.
Hybrid.
And the total for this one is 9, 10, 11,000.
I would say it's $9,000 for what, at least what we described to them, and then they were suggesting if we wanted to add another meeting, it'd be another $750. I think a suggestion I might make is maybe to go with TLA with a not to exceed 18,000 or something, which is or whatever number you want.
So this one that was a year and a half ago, the bright yellow one, so for instance, they're saying up to 5 forum meetings, but they are listing more than 6 plus et cetera forum meetings. How many forum meetings do we anticipate we're having?
So what I think if we took the process in the what was in yellow was very similar to the process for how we did Portrait of the Graduate. There was focus groups, so they came down and facilitated focus groups. But after those focus groups and after they did the survey, so they do the survey with the white piece, there was a design team that was writing, and working on that Portrait of the Graduate project that you've seen. We met, I think, 6 or 7 times as a group. They were here facilitating that process too. That's where I'm saying I don't know necessarily that we need them to come down and facilitate our writing of the strategic plan.
So how many forums did you have? 6 or 7? Or that was how many strategic plan meetings you had with them?
Oh, the forums, I think we had, 6 forums.
You had
if I recall.
6, so you got the 5, plus you paid for an additional one for $750.
Pretty sure.
Okay. And anticipating for strategic plan, are you anticipating of having 6 more?
I don't know that we've gotten that far, but I would imagine it would be something, somewhat similar, because we tried to have every stakeholder group.
Right, like, well, they say CPAC, they say, all that. So you know that you're in it for the 9 and plus the $750, most likely. And then the introductory meeting with the strategic planning subcommittee, obviously you're gonna have that because it's gonna be like your first time working with them regarding strategic plan rolling out. And then meeting with the committee to facilitate the data, which is the support, but that's what you're saying, you don't necessarily know if you're gonna need?
I mean, it's looking at survey data. Again, I think Robin and I can go crunch numbers with the best of them. So again, I don't know necessarily that's what I'd prefer to bank money towards a different focus group if that's what we feel is needed.
This is more like a la carte, like they'll just do what you want.
Right.
There's no number to it. Because this is, the last conversation we had about this, we were really leaning towards the team that we had, there was really not going to be a need for a consultant. So now we're back to the table and we've decided there is a need for a consultant. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think what we had talked
I know
about
what I heard, but is that what I'm hearing now?
it would be good to have somebody come in and externally facilitate the focus groups.
So now we do want a consultant.
So that's
Okay.
the 9.
Okay. So what we're looking to is to vote for the 9. And then if you have to add, you come back and ask. Because I don't know that we should be approving $18,000 if it's not even close to what the
Do we
proposal
want
is.
to approve the 11,750 though?
Whatever, what are you guys proposing?
Yeah, I think until we meet with them and start the process, I think you could vote to have TLA be the facilitator. Have us start, because I think we need to work with them and have them hear from us, who do we think should be the different focus groups, and, I think it's a little bit of a work that needs to happen with them in the room too.
So then maybe we are just voting on the recommendation to work with TLA, and then the subcommittee will come back to us with a budget.
The figure.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's it.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I can make it unless one of the strategic members want to make it. I wrote something out.
I make a motion that the committee engage TLA to work with us to develop a strategic plan.
Do I have a second?
I'd second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh,
That's okay. Do we want to have part of, I don't know, Tina, if you put it in yours, but have a little bit more about how you're going to come back with a budget, with a number for us to vote on? Like, go back to the task force and come back for a number?
I didn't include, I actually wrote 2 different motions, one with a number because that's where I thought we were going, but then I rewrote it to, just to approve the recommendation. So I don't have Yeah, I know, I did originally, 'cause
Scribble them
I
up.
thought that's what we were originally doing. But I think what she's saying is fine, because we're just gonna bring, that's what we're voting, is to
Yep, so I think
partner.
we'll just vote on bringing them and then charge the subcommittee with bringing a budget back to us.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so no discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Moving right along to the update of the policy files, JJH, IJOA, JJHR, the field trips and student travel, domestic and international. If you don't mind.
So Melissa provided us with this policy. There's been no changes to it, but you had requested to see the policy, and so here it is.
Was there anything that, oops, sorry, Madam Chair.
Ms. Everett-Long?
I'm so bad. Was there anything that the policy subcommittee discussed in length that should be brought to our attention? Anything that
We
was
haven't met yet to go over
surprising?
this.
Oh.
We don't meet till September.
But we did talk about it. We did talk about it at our last meeting briefly, that this had just been, well, it had been updated.
Last year, 2022.
Yeah, she said, but this is 2002.
Oh.
I thought
She
that
said
this was
just
going to
updated.
policy subcommittee to review and then bring back to talk to us
Not
about it,
yet.
like if.
Not yet. You had said in a meeting you wanted to see the policy, and so we brought it out, but we haven't reviewed this yet at our meetings.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was going to subcommittee first.
I think we weren't sure
What the question was.
what the question was
You just
about
asked if
it.
there was a policy. And
We'd
so it's-
never seen a policy.
Right, so we're bringing it here. So review.
And I'm not on policy subcommittee, so.
No, that's what I'm saying. In the meeting, you asked if this
Yeah.
was here because the Grease trip came out.
If we had a policy.
Right, and
Okay.
so this is here, so you can see it, there's been no changes to it.
Okay.
And the policy subcommittee hasn't reviewed this yet, and we're
Okay.
going to be reviewing more in September and
So
October.
you guys are gonna review it? Great.
But you asked for it, and here it is.
All right, moving right along to the
Question
superintendent.
Before we move on,
Yes.
so is this, just out of curiosity, because there are 3 files at the top, are these 3 different policies? Or, I don't know if I can even remember. Did this get pulled from 3 different policies to make one policy?
Yeah, they're all cross-referenced.
I wouldn't be
Is
able
that
to
right?
answer
They're all
that question.
cross-references? Yeah, okay. Because I think I might have been part of this somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
I was just trying to remember. Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to superintendent's report.
Just a couple thank yous. We'd like to thank the Sheldoff family of Chatham for their donation of $500, and thank the Chatham Marconi Maritime Center for reimbursing the travel expenses up to $300 for Harwich Elementary and Chatham Elementary student field trips to the Marconi Museum back in the spring of 2023. And then just sort of an update to the school committee. You've already voted and approved a school trip to Costa Rica for this upcoming year. They don't have enough students, or they didn't have enough students initially register for the trip for February, and do think that they can get to the number, but have to push the trip back to April. All the families that have already signed up for the trip will be able to have it be the same cost that was initially presented. The plane flights are $70 more in April, but if we don't move it to April and only send 13 students, it's going to have to be a modified trip and potentially a shorter trip, because there are not enough kids to run the trip as they had initially pitched it. So Jen and I have told Dustin Burns, who came to present, to go forth and attempt to recruit students for the April vacation timeframe.
Any questions?
I
Ms.
have
Gaines?
just one question. I'm just curious, and you may not know this, are any of the ones that were going in February scheduled to go to anything else in April?
No,
Okay, all right.
apparently it works out
Okay,
well
all
for
right.
all of them. But,
Okay.
we've had, during COVID, you can imagine, we had to shift shift things around. You know, this was, you know, I don't recall that we've had to shift one because there wasn't enough initial sign up to be able to have the trip fly, so to speak. But I'm pretty optimistic that once, I think it was sort of late in the school year that we approved it, and they just didn't get the sign-ups over the summer.
Perfect.
That's it.
All right. One action item that will not be presented tonight are the declaration of surplus.
Oh.
So we took that off the list.
Okay.
For tonight. It will come back at our next meeting. We have had the presentation of warrants, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, and we will adjourn at 8:29.
Thank you. I know.